Welcome to The Truth in HeART. I am your host, Rob Lee. Thank you for listening, sharing, and subscribing to this podcast. Today, we're going back in our partnership with the Waterfront Partnership of Baltimore, and today's episode brings us into the world of film, television production, and vibrant community events of the Baltimore by Baltimore Festival, B by B, with an HBCU spirited, business-savvy producer. Please welcome the producer of Heart and Soul, Tia Goodson. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, happy to be here. Excited to talk to you and excited about these rapid fire questions that are coming to me at the end.
Everyone always has a trepidation around the rapid fire. At one point, when I first added those questions, I think maybe season 3 or what have you, because I'm going into season 9. In season 3, I was just like, maybe I'll call them the firing squad question. I think that's a little too aggressive. Might be a little too aggressive. I don't know.
Yeah, chill out, bro. Like, that's a lot.
Well, they come quickly. So, I want to thank you again for coming on and making the time to be a part of this podcast. And, I'm reading you bring a unique blend of, academic achievement, advanced degrees and all, and, community involvement to the table. So talk about your Baltimore ties and that sort of HBCU sense of community, how it has influenced Heart and Soul, your branch of BxB.
Yeah, so Baltimore-born and raised, born in Freedom Way West, which doesn't even exist now. Today, it's like a bunch of pastel colored townhomes over in East Baltimore, and then moved on to Govans and went to Western High School, and from Western, went to HeART, stayed in DC for about 10 years, and then came back to Baltimore. And I'll be honest with you, when I moved back to Baltimore, I didn't expect to stay for long. I had my stuff in a storage unit. It's like, I'm just coming here to figure things out. I knew I didn't want to renew my lease where I was staying, and then I'll be right back to DC. But while I was here, I sort of fell back in love with my city. I saw the charm. It felt good to be close to my family, just to have immediate access to them. And I just started to enjoy being here and envisioning a life here. It took a minute, but before I knew it, I wasn't in a rush to leave. And to the point where I had DC friends who had never been to Baltimore. So they would come down and I would do tours of Baltimore and just kind of like show them around and show them a different side. Because I could talk about the city and things to do and places to go and history all day. So I wanted to bring that sort of love of city to my event. I went to HeART, and I feel like there's something very similar and sacred about HBCUs in the communities that you build there, and how they influence the importance of community, no matter where you are, and strong ties to legacy and those that have preceded you and those that will come after you. So in pulling together members of my team for this event and pulling together resources and curating, I really felt the spirit of all of that. So I think somewhere I quoted that I was bringing this sort of like HBCU sense of community, because that's kind of just what it felt like. And, Heart and Soul not only focused on love of city, but it was love of self. So I wanted to have health components. I wanted to have community resources there for attendees. And I wanted to focus on music that dealt with love. Yeah. I felt like A lot of our events were centered around, and when I say our, I just mean like festivals and events in the city, and the curation of the performances skewed heavy on hip hop or may focus on club music. And not that those things don't have components of love in them, but when I was thinking about how I wanted my event to be different, there hadn't been one solely focused on that genre of music. So I wanted to focus on that. So the HeART is the self-love, the health component. The capital ART was the additional component for love of art. So we had live performances. We had one of the largest vendor setups that BxB has seen. And then the soul was for the music and the community component. And all of that is really reflected in the team that I worked with. So I had Anthony Waters and Alex Harrington with More Water Co., who handled the health component. And then I partnered with Black Ass Flea Market, who handled the vendor component. So they handled the art. I had the music, I had the soul, and Anthony had the heart component. And so kind of came together, heart and soul.
That makes so much sense. And that's actually, I want to key in on that a little bit more in my next question. But I definitely, something you mentioned in that, because, you had the producer thing. As I'm listening, I was like, yeah, I know this talk. I know this producer talk here. You mentioned Govans. So shout out to you. I lived in Govans area as well.
Yeah, little chunk of land over there on East Baltimore, York Road.
Beaverbrook Road.
Yeah, York Road, Northern Parkway-ish.
Yeah, it's just like the forgotten part.
Yeah, tucked away. Stokos.
Yo, yes. So like, let me get that personal pan pizza, Hassan. The cheese fries, please. Thanks. So, curating like diversity, and I always have trouble with that. Where I have trouble with the word vibrant and diversity because I think they mean other things, and it's like it's overused. It's like, come on, you're smarter than that. But sort of having like a large swath of different folks, and you were touching on it a bit with sort of how things were divided as to who's going to handle the health department, health side of things, who's going to handle the vendor side. You're handling sort of the music component. What was it like in working with so many different personalities that all have sort of this creative mindset and their way of doing stuff, but bringing it together? And I think it's producer mind, but bringing it all together. What was that experience like?
So you mean like with bringing together my team solely?
Yes.
So here's the thing. Waterfront Partnership, Melody Thomas, Leanna Wetmore were amazing and fantastic. They were my point of contacts with Waterfront Partnership, and they literally showed up with a product. They already had a product, and I just kind of had to insert myself and create a theme and bring my special sauce to it, my secret sauce to it, right? But they handled a lot of the logistics that I would typically handle as a film and TV producer. So that freed me up to really be in creator mode, curator mode. So having them to support advertising and social media pushes and the logistics of stage and audio and things like that, permits, licenses, everything. That was a breath of fresh air. So I don't have to focus on that. So now I'm going to not take on everything else by myself. I'm going to then curate a team for what's left. Mm-hmm. So I went to school with Anthony Waters. We completed our MBA together. And we worked on many projects during our 2 years at Hopkins together. So we already had a really great working relationship, able to bounce ideas off of each other, able to flow, respecting differences, working through, if we don't see eye to eye, like that was already go. Seamless decision. Like it was just seamless working with him because we already had history.
Yeah.
And with Black Ass Flea Market, with Bree and Sola, we came together maybe 2 years ago when we collaborated on a sort of like an art gallery pop-up for CIAA.
Nice.
We had already had a working relationship as well. And it was sort of the thing where like looking for another opportunity to do this again and to do it better. And it just so happened that that next opportunity was B. So while, yes, everybody has different personalities, skill sets, we had already kind of had these sort of amazing run-ins with each other that proved that we could work together. We could work through things. We could problem solve, troubleshoot, because going to school, being in an MBA program, being like maybe 2 out of 3 Black people from Baltimore,
Yeah.
we had already navigated through the tough terrain of a MBA program, trying to also work full time, manage our lives, and also come out with the same sense of self that we went in, because that was always questioned, right? Like our abilities, our capabilities, our voices. And so having like, made it through that gauntlet, we can pretty much collaborate on anything. And when Bree and Sola and I collaborated the first time, we had a lot to work through then. We had to work through like tight budgets and get creative. So working with people and having some type of struggle that you need to overcome, I think prepares you for like the next thing, the thing that's going to be larger. And so that was for us in our working relationships, B. So
no, it sounds great in that, sometimes people think like you have like the biggest and I'm going to reach out for everybody. It's like, no, it's relationships. It's people that, can produce the stuff, and sort of that supportive like value that I'm hearing when it comes to Waterfront Partnership, being there to take sort of like, offset that part of it where it just lets the producer cook, as it were. And, I even look at doing this, it's a lot of volume, it's a lot of episodes, a lot of content. And, some people it's like, oh, okay, let me connect with you because I can probably have you on a different podcast, or may have you back for another episode of this to catch up with you and things of that nature. So having sort of that reference point, a lot of times in doing these interviews, I've described it as almost blind dating with creatives. It's like, I don't know what I'm going to get out of this. It could go left. The person could have had a bad day. It could be weird energy. And people don't always communicate that. But when you have those moments where it clicks and you just see your person and it's like, we have the same values when it comes to working collaboratively, it's like, we should work again together. How can we make this happen again? How can we make this happen in this way? So it's great to see that because, as we all know, Baltimore is not huge. So when you run into your people that you can work with, you're like, you available? Come on over.
Yeah, and it's really amazing because, the women at Black Ass Flea Market were like, well, thank you for, bringing us along with you. And like, thanks for thinking of us. And we really appreciate you including us. And for me, there was never a question, there was never a question about who would be my partner for that particular part of the event. In fact, I never thought to try and do it myself.
Right.
And so it was really interesting how on the day of the event, people kept telling me like, are you okay? Is everything okay? And I'm like, I'm fine. How you feel? I'm good. And they were like, you are really calm. I said, I know, it's weird, huh? Because it was a very out of body experience in that I felt like the emotion of the event that everyone else was feeling was completely separate from what I was feeling and experiencing.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, this is so big. You're doing it big for Baltimore. Like, this is amazing. Everything is amazing. This is amazing. And I was like, you know, just another Saturday, just.
I hear you. I hear you.
I'm just chilling. And so I still wonder, I wondered on that day, and I still wonder if this is mostly attributed to the fact that I had partners in position that I trusted. I trusted Waterfront Partnership to do what they said they were going to do, and they did. I trusted Anthony to do what he said he was going to do with More Waterco, and he did. I trusted Black Ass Flea Market to do what they said they were going to do, and they did. And I trusted one person I haven't mentioned as part of my team was Big Fred the comedian. He was the host for today. And so he told me either the day before or the day of, he was like, Tia, today consider me your assistant. And so he was like, I'm here for whatever you need. And once I had created the run of show, and I had worked through how the schedule was going to flow, and I turned it over to Fred, and I checked in periodically, like I had no worries.
Yeah.
I could actually take moments to enjoy what was happening, which is such a blessing in the producer role, because a lot of times when I'm on film set, I'm going. Right. I am the one that has to keep the wheel turning. So there isn't a lot of opportunity to sit down and like take it all in. So my team allowed me to be able to do that. And the second part, like I said, one part, I don't know if it's attributed to having a strong team, but the second part is that I wondered if, maybe this is walking in my purpose. Maybe that's what this feels like.
Sounds like it's about right.
Maybe being where you are when you are supposed to be there doing what you're supposed to do feels this way. I'm still on the fence about it. I don't know. I don't think that means doing this exact same thing again, sure. But I think it's going to lead to something, and I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, I think, and I want to step back to kind of cut through one of the things, or point back on one of the things you mentioned, because I relate to it when it comes to, there's an event. Let's say you're putting on a show, you're putting on some type of event, like it might be for me, let's say a podcast, festival, movie night, whatever. There are so many things that I have to put my fingers on that I don't have a chance to even like enjoy it really, or there is this dynamic that comes to mind. So, I've touched on in this podcast before that I've been doing this for a very long time. And, when I got to like the 10th anniversary of me podcasting, we did a 10th anniversary show, and it was just going to be different segments, all of the guest hosts I've had over the years and all of this stuff. We had games and everything. But then sort of a lot of times you're getting one piece. Either you have the venue and you got to deal on that, or you don't have all the resources that you need. So I'm like trying to learn how to use the AV equipment to train someone quickly while I should be prepping. And I was like, I don't want to be on a stage the entire time. I'd rather be in the background. I'm on the stage the entire time. And I'm very much like repetition, like wouldn't be an actor. It's just, I don't know. I can't see it. It's just like, oh yeah, well, memorize these lines. I ain't got it. I'm going to be improvising the entire time. So trying to think through that. And what happens for me is being in sort of the kind of producer mindset and the sort of, I guess, talent or in front of the audience or screen mindset. I don't want one to suffer to serve the other one. So, a lot of times not being able to get that support or have that team that's 100% engaged, then, you just have it. It's like, oh yeah, you got it. No look past, you got it. That's sort of what you want. It's a lot of folks who, want to be chiefs, but they don't want to be the other part. They don't want to be the Indians, to use the colloquial term. But having like someone, as you mentioned, with like Big Fred, like I'm working for you. Like I'm your assistant, whatever you need. that's super important. It's like someone pre-delegating, like, hey, I'll take that. Yeah, whatever you need, I got it. And you're able to cook. You're able to lean into your strengths and not be inundated. So that's important.
Yeah. And really back to this whole conversation about purpose, the reason why I produced the September installment of Baltimore by Baltimore is because I went to Fred's show last year.
Yeah.
And I walked up to him and I said, Fred, I think I can do this. How do I do this? And he said, oh, well, he said, well, talk to such and such. Yeah, you got to talk to him. You know, this is how it worked for me. And I was like, okay, cool. And so I think I walked over to Leanna and I said, hey, I think I can do this. How can I do this? And she said, okay, well, you know, message me on Instagram. And then when we wrap back around, start planning for next year, I'll reach out to you. And she did. And we had a conversation. I told her my thoughts about the event, and I was one of the few producers chosen. So it was really, and to add another piece to this full circle moment, I met Fred in an accountability group. So I met him years ago through a photographer I knew who had an accountability group with two other people. And I joined them and we would meet up and we would set our goals and we would work through it. I was a freelancer at the time. So I was trying to figure out, you know, what my next move was. And there was someone else in the group that was a makeup artist, and Fred, you know, he was doing his comedy thing. He was actually doing his comedy thing part-time, wanted to do it full-time, wanted to create, I don't know if it came out in the accountability group or in a session that Fred and I had together, but I remember sitting with him, helping him think through how he would start a youth program. Yeah. And so now that youth program is Little Labs, it's a whole thing. They performed at the September BxB. Yeah. So again, it's like this theme of like purpose and full circle moments and divine intervention and all of that keep kind of coming up in my stories about this event.
Big shout out to Fred. Last year, I ended up pulling up to the BxB that Terrell did. And so you got Larry and you got Fred. So you got those two personalities. They twisted my arm. It was like, Rob, get on the stage. You're interviewing Fred right now. I was like, excuse me? And I was just like, I got nothing prepared. And I'm like trying to improv. And I think someone tried to heckle me. And I'm like, yes, boo me. I'm terrible up here. But it was a really cool and invigorating experience. And some, you know, folks with like the energy of the Freds, of the Larry What-Ups, that, you know, they're going to pull you in, and it's like they're your cousins. That's the way I feel about it. And those sort of connections. And I've been in classes with both of them actually for digital storytelling. I was in a class with both of them and seeing kind of how they operate, and, you know, seeing the cool stuff that Fred has been doing and even Larry's been doing is really cool. And those are connections that come from BxB. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So in thinking back a little bit, in the event in the BxB Heart and Soul, what was the piece of it, if there was one? And I'm sure there's several, but what was the piece of it, if there was one, that you think really resonated with the Baltimore community? Because it is Baltimore by Baltimore, and I think, you know, that name is very intentional. I always say it. It's Baltimore producers. It's not, hey, I came in from New York and I know what y'all need. It's just like people who are from here doing stuff that is reflective of the community, or at least it's going to be, you know, reflective of the community is the way to put it, I think. So what comes to mind for you, and, you know, being a little bit removed from it and having time to process and think through it?
The piece that resonated with the community. It's interesting. There were people there well after the sun went down, well after the DJ stopped playing. There was a consistent crowd. Yeah. Which as a producer of the event, you just can't ask for anything better, that the people are just there. Like, they're not thinning out and then coming back. Like, they are there and they are everywhere. It's hard to pick out what one component I think resonated with the community. I do know that everyone enjoyed watching the kids, you know.
Yeah.
Charm City loves the kids, right? So I think the kids were a definite highlight. The vendors received amazing support. And we're very grateful for the experience, just to be down there, to be at the water. A lot of people, as kids, came to the harbor to hang out. And as entrepreneurs and vendors maybe thought about having a storefront down there, Fred always talks about how he wanted to just perform right in that space in which he was performing. So I think for the people participating in it, being able to present at the waterfront in that space was really, really impactful and meaningful, right? As a vendor, as an art curator, as an artist. I think that overall the curation of music spanned ages.
Yeah.
So I saw a very diverse mix of ages in the crowd, which was also nice to see. There was a little bit for every, there was something for the whole family, I think, in terms of the type of artists that performed, and the lane in which we sort of set the artists and the performers.
That's great. So I got two more real questions left. Okay. And this one kind of is starting to pin everything together. So with Heart and Soul being a part of Baltimore by Baltimore, the larger overarching series, how do you see this event adding to like the conversation around like Baltimore's like cultural narrative? And add a little bit more context to it, I can say like, this year especially, people seem to be more outwardly saying, Baltimore's got this creative stuff here. We're doing all of this, from the Orioles jerseys and, the stuff that they're doing, and having like club music at the ballpark on Fridays, and acknowledging the different artists, and having creatives involved at the stuff happening at the ballpark, for sake of argument, which is one of those tourist attractions. It's downtown. It's a team that's winning, getting national spotlight. And when those sort of Friday night games and you're seeing like local artists pop up for the national anthem, it's getting eyes and ears on our stuff here. So in having, you're having Heart and Soul, your event at like the inner harbor, in that area where all of this traffic, Baltimoreans and outside of Baltimoreans popping up, how do you think it adds to the narrative of what this sort of Baltimore Renaissance is?
Yeah, I think that what I want to see become more mainstream, more everyday practice. What I want the narrative to be is that we are all that we need. And I don't mean that in that, okay, there aren't cases where we can expand outside, but we have a lot of what we need here. I think that on a local level, on a smaller level, if we want to consider BxB small, these festivals and these types of events do a really good job at sticking to Baltimore by Baltimore, right? Like tapping into the necessary pockets in order to like make these things successful, feeling homegrown, feeling like Baltimore. And I say that because I was talking to someone a few weeks ago that referenced a Baltimore event that was a bit larger as not feeling local.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, it was created by people connected to the city, but it didn't feel like something for us who are in the city, who are from the city. There's a good in that. There's a positive to that, in that more people are coming to Baltimore and seeing what we have here. And to a certain extent, we want that. We want people to, be like, oh, it's cool to go to Baltimore, or I actually like hanging out in Baltimore, right? But you also don't want to alienate the folks who are here. right? So I think that larger events can take heed to that, can learn from that, can learn to better understand the city, understand that they may not know everything about the city, and dig a little deeper to tap into untapped pockets of people. Yeah, I think there's a different strategy when we start to get larger that needs to be put into place. And I think it needs to expand outside of one's personal professional circles and really do something different to tap into necessary entities and people that are actually connected to the communities if we're really trying to reach the communities.
I agree with that. And yeah, as I touched on earlier, and I've said in other instances related to B, it's very intentional to me. It's like on the nose of like, Waterfront Partnership, B is, putting like Baltimore producers, that have ties to the city and have a best interest in what happens in the city from the lens of arts, culture, community, what I say in this podcast all the time, giving them the opportunity to kind of do their thing and succeed, helping them in that estimation. Whereas other, entities at times seem to not be doing that, or kind of shooting themselves in the foot and not really taking advantage of the resources that they may have, the creative community that they have, that sort of access. And, I see it from this vantage point of kind of being in, the community in that way, but also outside of the community because of sort of, I'm able to see it at a really large scope and large scale. And you see it and it's like, all right, cool. You're going to bring in, let's say, this podcaster to do this thing. I'm right here, right? And I do this thing, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we just need someone someone else, someone that's different. All right, well, what about these other 3 podcasters that are here in Baltimore that could speak on this as well? No, we just need to bring in someone from a different community to, really show us how it's done. It's a lot of that happens. And we see it when it comes to, some events that have been around for a very long time, decades. And it's just like, what is the influence? What is the goal? What is the taste involved? Whereas, B doesn't do that. In any of the instances, in any of the partnerships and the conversations that I've had and the events I've attended, it's just like, oh, this is a Baltimore thing. That's what this feels like. It doesn't feel like I'm trying to copy DC or New York or Philly.
Yeah. And I mean, there's something about location, right? So it's at the harbor. First of all, I think I had an amazing day. The weather was good. I was at the harbor Labor Day weekend. So I'm already getting foot traffic. I'm in a tourist destination. And then there are the people who are naturally coming out to support the vendors, the artists, me, and or just looking for something to do, and they've seen the advertising, so they come out. But people also came from South Carolina, Alabama, DC. So there is an ability to stay true to being a homegrown event and still attract people from the outside. Like, it's kind of like what we were talking about off record before, right? About understanding your worth and what you bring to the table, understanding your magic and leaning into that, and then relying on that to be your superpower. Okay, we're going to create something that's very true to us. And that is the thing that will attract people because it's true to us. That's what makes us unique. If I try to whitewash that or water that down, then it's no longer special. It's just like everything else. And so I just really want us, when we grow, to do a better job at understanding that, and to not get too specific, but to provide a real world example. When we're talking about tapping into pockets of communities, there's an event that has a D9 component, right? So I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. So you're having a large event that has a D9 component, but you don't reach out to the National Panhellenic Council of Metropolitan Baltimore. To me, that is a very strategic and positive relationship to have and build from jump, right? I don't have to rely on maybe someone who works or is connected with this event and their D9 or Black Greek letter organization connections. I can actually reach out to the council that all the D9 organizations have a representative on, right? I feel like decisions like that make sense. And it's not just because strategy was something that I really gravitated towards in business school. It's just, I just think it's smart. It's like work smart, not hard. So let me go to the large organization that everyone else funnels into and then funnel my information out through them or partner with them. So now it frees me up to do something else.
Right.
This is the mindset I tried to bring to my event. This is the way that I really want some of our larger events to like, I want them to move in this way and to think about, or at least, I don't want to say give the impression that they're thinking about it, but because I really want them to think about it and do it. But I just want them to move in a way that, you know, when I'm looking at the event, I can connect the dots. And sometimes I can't connect the dots. There's like dots missing.
On occasion, and I think I got the last question, so I'm going to move into rapid fire in a moment. But on occasion, because it's one of those sort of pandemic shows, I always go back to The Last Dance because it's very meme worthy, right? And I start at times balancing between Jordan, who's a noted Aquarius such as me, or Isaiah Thomas when it comes to like, okay, I had that criteria. And, you know, there's one event we may have talked about off mic that I'm an HBCU alum that does a podcast. And I reached out to the folks involved and they didn't see a connection. They didn't see it. And I'm like, okay, cool. And now with some of those folks, it turns into the Jordan side of it where I just took it personal. It's just like, I just won't work with you. And I think it almost, to pin it all together, goes back to sort of the theme that's come through, at least from what I'm hearing in it, the folks that you work with, like it's relationships. It's sort of those connections. It's like, are you doing good work? Are you doing good biz? Can I count on you? And are our values aligned? That's what I'm hearing.
Exactly.
So I want to go into 3 rapid fire questions for you. And it was 4, but I was like, no, I'm not going to hit it with that one. We don't need that one.
Are you sure? Are you sure? Because I'm up for the challenge. Just lay out the rules for me so that I know how this is going to flow.
I'll give you the 4th one then. Okay. So pretty much you just don't want to overthink them. Whatever the answer that pops in your head, it's like, look, I said what I said. It's kind of that. That's essentially what it is. Okay. So here's the first one. What is your favorite color? Very simple. Black. Said black? Nice. Astrological sign. I'm always interested in this.
Taurus.
Okay. Do you have a go-to mantra or saying that keeps you grounded?
The first thing that comes to mind is be the change, but I don't know if that's it. Like I have anxiety, so like I say all the things to myself, whatever works on that day is the one that I go with.
When I'm trying to do ads or even do the intros, which is why I record my intros in pre versus straight up, because like when a person's on screen, I'm like, yo, what are they doing with their face? What am I doing with my face? I can't make it happen. I just put my thing on like black, take the screen off, do my intro. And I remember I was having this time with my ex-co-host where he's like, man, we got it. He said something that I now say to myself. He's like, no mixes up, man. No messes. We're not going to mess this up at all, bro. 300 times, man, 300 times. It made no sense. I think we did 300 episodes and he's like, you never messed up then. So you're not going to mess up now, bro.
Wait, so is this going, you playing this video? Because I got this weird lighting going on here.
Oh, nah, it's no lighting here. No lighting here.
I got this streak. You should have told me. Okay. All right. Whatever.
So this is the last one. And this is one that I brought back in. It was out for a little while. what is the emoji that you find yourself using most often? the tongue outside emoji?
That's the first thing that came. I mean, it's probably not the one that I use the most, but like, why did that come to my mind? I don't know. Y'all, for the listeners, it was the tongue hanging out the mouth.
That's great. Boz is that red demon with all the extra facial hair. It's like, when I don't shave, it's just like, and I get really hot. It's like, oh, you're red.
But I mean, if I really had to be honest, I think it's like the side laughing emoji, and then I do the squint, because I always have side eyes and questions. So
I've noticed that during this podcast, by the way. I was like, she hates all of my questions. I got nothing.
No, that's also my thinking face. It's multi-purpose.
Multi-purpose faces. Yeah. So that is actually pretty much it for today. You survived rapid fire. You aced it. You got all 4. So, not that anyone's counting. I mean, overachievers here. So with that, I want to, one, thank you for coming onto the podcast and sharing your thoughts and your experience with BxB and Heart and Soul. And I wanted to give you the space in these final moments to share your final thoughts and where folks can check you out to learn more about your work outside of BxB.
Final thoughts. I mean, I guess I'm just, thank you for reaching out with the opportunity to do this interview and to talk a little bit about my thoughts on the event, and actually like saying some things out loud that I've said in my head for some time, which has been a little cathartic. So I appreciate that. Folks can follow me on Instagram at Concrete Rose Grows, like the Tupac poem, The Rose That Grew from Concrete Rose Grows, to see what I'll do next. And if you were listening at all to this interview, you know that I don't know what that is going to be. It will be something. I just don't know what. But currently, you can catch me on a commercial set near you. That's my day job. And, hope to be able to do this again.
And there you have it, folks. I want to again thank Tia Goodson for coming on and sharing some insights and vision around Heart and Soul, brought to you by the fine folks with BxB, Baltimore by Baltimore. And thank you to the Waterfront Partnership of Baltimore for bringing us all together and making these great interviews happen. And I'm Rob Lee, saying that there's art, culture, and community in and around Baltimore. You've just got to look for it.